Seven kids are in the Joe DiMaggio Hospital. Two of them are in our ICU. Don't you think the mask would help those poor children?
Do you have any data to suggest that? Do you know if they were wearing masks?
I know they weren't vaccinated.
Well, they're not right. They're not eligible for the vaccination. I mean, that's not. I mean, you know, well, so you're blaming the kids, saying they weren't wearing masks and so they're in the ICU. With all due respect, I find that deplorable. To blame a victim who ends up being hospitalized. You don't know their story. You don't know what happened with that. And this has been a really negative thing throughout this whole thing with some of these quote experts, some of the media. Somebody contracts a highly transmissible airborne virus, and they're viewed as having done something wrong. And that's just not the way you do it. When people come in, you treat them. You know, we obviously have some people that are not vaccinated that have been admitted to hospitals. Are you going to sit there? Are you going to sit there and criticize, or are we going to try to treat and try to help the folks? You know, I'm just sick of this judge. I'm sick of the judgmental stuff on some of this stuff. Nobody's trying to get ill here. Okay, it's a very there's people that were hermits for a year and a half that wore 6 masks and did that and still contracted it. Okay, so let's just be real here, and let's not indulge these things that somehow it's their fault for not doing it. So.
What are you hoping to do in regards to the increase in hospitalizations?
Well, like I mentioned, we are watching the CLI. That is plateauing. The hospital admissions have slowed. I don't think we've reached the peak yet, but I think we're going to settle in hopefully this week or next week. But in terms of shutting down, we're not shutting down. We're going to have schools open. We're protecting every Floridian's job in this state. We're protecting people's small businesses. These interventions have failed time and time again throughout this pandemic, not just in the United States, but abroad. They have not stopped the spread, and particularly with Delta, which is even more transmissible. If it didn't stop it before, it definitely ain't going to stop it now. And so I think it's very important that we understand that. The best defenses we have are the combination of the natural immunity that's been built up and our seniors first vaccination efforts. I think that's why you have such a steep decline in mortality year over year. And look, at the end of the day, would I rather have 5,000 cases amongst 20-year-olds or 500 cases among seniors? I would rather have the younger because of the effect that it has. And so I think protecting the vulnerable has been the right way to go. And, I do anticipate us monitoring those indicators. But I think it's important to point out because, obviously media does hysteria. You try to fear monger. You try to do this stuff. And when they'll talk about hospitalizations, our hospitals are open for business. Like I said, Jackson, the COVID patients are half of what they were last year. Even in places that have more, COVID patients represent a fraction of the overall hospital beds. And so I don't want to see a repeat because of some of the media hysteria where people who have heart problems or stroke are not going in to get care. That happened in March of 2020 and in April. There was a huge decline in people who would show up to the ED. Literally, people are having heart attacks at home because they thought that there weren't either not enough room in the hospital or they thought that they would get COVID and die as a result of that.